Hello, I'm back. Yes, here I am. I hope you're having a good day. And obviously today's video is going to be me recapping and telling you my thoughts on episode 8 of The King Eternal Monarch. And boy howdy, was this a great episode. I started off at the beginning of the episode having a few gripes about some things and the way that they were handled. But literally by the end of the episode, I did not care about the things that I was feeling negative about at the beginning. Overall, really great episode, and I want to tell you all about it, so let's get into it. First of all, we immediately find out where the detective's fresh ID badge went. It seems that someone from Uncle Yim's camp is the spy and the person who stole the ID from the head court lady's room. We find that out because he's at the bookstore and opens up the book, and lo and behold, there's her ID. And luckily enough, the bookstore manager was nosy enough to look over Yi Yim's shoulder, see the ID, and go, "Hey, I know that. That's Luna. Everybody knows Luna." Everybody knows about her because she will steal, kill, anything for a price. So now Yi Yim knows that the detective has a doppelganger in Korea, and that doppelganger is Luna, and apparently will do anything for a price. So Yi Yim tells the bookstore manager, "Bring her to me." I don't know if he's actually the bookstore manager, but I mean, he works at the bookstore. He could own the bookstore. Let's not get too caught up in what I'm calling him here. After this, we go back to where the last episode left off, and that's the Prime Minister meeting Luna as she's leaving the prison from being released. Even though Luna has different hair, different complexion, the Prime Minister does think that she's the detective and that she's the person that she met with the king. Luna mentions she doesn't remember meeting the Prime Minister, definitely didn't vote for her, and just is overall a different person in this second encounter to the Prime Minister. Luna, of course, gets in the Prime Minister's face and threatens her a little bit, then walks away from the Prime Minister, leaving the Prime Minister very confused, and also Son's bracelet, because Luna also stole her bracelet. Luna's next stop is an ice cream shop where she waits for a little kid to leave with his mother before she goes up to the guy that was in line behind her and hits him upside the head with a chair. Apparently he's the reason she was in jail, so she beats him up until he says he'll get her the money that he owes. She also threatens his family, yada yada yada, so on and so forth. We do see her later in the episode with the yo-yo kid that we saw in a previous episode. Couldn't remember if it was in the Kingdom of Korea or Korea, but she meets up with him to get a key that he was holding onto for her, and she gives him her bunny jacket. So it seems like even though she will kill, maim, do anything for money, she has a kind of a conscience. You know, she doesn't want kids around her to be scarred. Maybe that has to do with something in her past, but either way, we do find out about that quality of Luna that maybe a lot of people don't know about. You know, people only know that she'll kill, steal, whatever for money, but she apparently does care for kids and, you know, waited for the kid to leave the ice cream shop before she beat the shit out of some guy, so she's maybe got some morals. Meanwhile, in the Korea universe, the detective is investigating the death of Yi Yim, the doppelganger from her universe, and the hospital that he supposedly passed away in. While speaking with the manager of the hospital, she grows immediately suspicious of her because when she starts asking kind of basic questions about Yi Yim and him passing away and if there was anybody at the hospital that remembers him, the manager immediately is like, "Do you have a warrant?" So the detective's like, "Why is she evading my questions? Why is she immediately asking if I have a warrant? That's suspicious." As the detective is leaving the hospital, we see the pregnant woman that Yi Yim had that little meeting with in a previous episode at that hospital, listening on a 2G or burner phone some news. We quickly find out that it's not news about Korea, but it's about Korea. So I guess she's learning things about Korea before she goes and takes over her doppelganger's life. So plot thickens. She's at the hospital. That hospital is connected to Yi-Yim's death. What could that mean? Could that mean that any doppelganger in Korea is using that hospital to die, and then they go over to Korea and replace their doppelgangers there? Could be. I mean, that's kind of what I'm connecting here. Since Yi-Yim died in that hospital, and now the pregnant woman is at that hospital, looks like she's slowly transforming into her doppelganger, learning her mannerisms, getting ready to replace her at that hospital. I feel like that manager is very suspicious now, for sure. Like, that's how they've been covering up the people in Korea disappearing. They're just killing them at that hospital, killing them. Now, I want to get into Detective Kang here because there is a lot of stuff that goes on with him in this episode, and I'm kind of pissed that I took so long to catch on to some of it throughout the episode, but I'm just going to talk about his whole arc from beginning to end of this episode just right now. It seems that Detective Kang might actually is a doppelganger from Korea. I know. Where did that come from? First off, he has to go pick up his mother from jail, who got arrested again for gambling. And when he takes her out to dinner later on in the episode, he asks if she was happy when he came out of his coma, that apparently he'd been in for a year. We also then see his doppelganger mother in Korea at the bookstore that Yi-Yim visits, and she's looking at photos of him in Korea longingly, as if maybe she's his real mother. We see a lot of flashes of him remembering his time in Korea. We see him at the king's doppelganger's grave and flashes of him seeing that same boy on TV. And the reason that he went to the king's doppelganger's grave is because earlier in the episode, he had been given the reports that a detective had asked for about Yi-Yim and his family and the death of this boy. So he goes to the cemetery to see what he looks like because, you know, he's worried about the detective. He's curious about what she's up to because she's been in and out of work, taking a lot of breaks. Like, what's going on there? He's investigating. And there he has a flash of that same boy on the TV crying from where? It doesn't seem like he's sure, but it seems like he's seeing things that are giving him flashes of memories from his past. And throughout the episode, it's as if he's trying to figure out if they're real or not. We also get some really great scenes of Usopp, who is Young's doppelganger, and Young, and a lot of mistaken identities happening in this episode between those two. For instance, the king and Young go out to eat, and the thugs from a previous episode are conveniently there. The king orders Young to beat them up, but finds out that it's not actually Young with him, it's Usopp. Young had told Usopp, just don't talk and go eat, and Usopp was like, a free meal? Cool. I like how shocked the king is when he realizes that it hadn't been Young with him the whole time. And, you know, Usopp just running away the minute the king's like, stand behind me, I'll protect you. I laughed a little too hard at this scene. I thought it was really well done, the acting, the comedy, it was great. Young does eventually show up wearing a mask as well, but obviously a different outfit, and ends up having to pretend to be Usopp because as he's beating up the thugs, the detectives who he works with think he's Usopp, and that Usopp just took down a bunch of thugs all on his own, and they didn't know he could fight so good. The king gives him a hard time about this later, which was a really good interaction since he kind of had to act like Usopp and basically talk down to the king in the process, which that's like, do you want to get beheaded? I guess you do. We also get an official confession from the detective telling the king she loves him, and after the shock finally wears off, the king says ditto in his response. Like, I guess, you know, he was really chasing after her, and now that she's finally like, I love you, now he's gonna be all like, okay, if you say so. That's kind of, that's emotionally not cool to me, but we know that he loves her, but he could just tell her that as well. that would have annoyed me way less in this scene. I will say that for sure. We then have the scene that after the previous scene of the mistaken identities of Unsup and Young, I knew was gonna happen, and that's when Young is mistaken for Unsup by Nari. It was great. He has her get out of her car and he whispers in her ear if she has a crush on him or if he has a crush on her. And because in this universe they're friends, obviously Unsup is the one with the crush on her. I mean, she's amazing. Young does notice, wow, she's tough, she's confident. Interesting. Like the complete opposite, really, of Songmi in the Kingdom of Korea that he works with. In regards to the murder case the detective is working on to solve, they obviously have been going after the boyfriend, but as they're looking at more evidence, they're starting to think that it might have actually been the roommate. And the roommate actually ends up coming and confessing to the crime. We find out later on in the episode that the reason for her killing her roommate is because she is actually a minion of Yi Yim's, and her roommate overheard her talking on the burner phone and had to kill her because she knew too much. And during the investigation, the detective finds out about the roommate's second 2G burner phone that makes her think that she might also be connected to Korea, like apparently the wife of the other murder victim is. And so she goes off to try and find the burner phone. She doesn't find the burner phone, she only finds the power adapter for it. But one of Yi Yim's minions also visits the girl in prison, basically threatens her, asks her where the burner phone is. She's like, I hid it, because I think she kind of knows if she tells him where it is that she's gonna get killed. But right now, everyone's looking for that burner phone. Meanwhile, the king goes back to that stew place from earlier because he really wants to try it. And apparently that place is owned by one of Yi Yim's minions, and he accidentally reacts to seeing the king in there and catches himself bowing his head like he would have in Korea. The king, being very self-aware of his surroundings, notices this and immediately takes action to confirm this and apprehend this man. Later that evening, Young grabs him as he tries to run away because he knows that he's been caught, and he and the king interrogate him and find out how he ended up in the Korea universe. The king and Young find out that he is actually one of the guards who participated in the coup, and this was his reward, to be taken to this universe so he could live and obviously not be caught and beheaded for participating in the murder of the king. Speaking of getting caught, it seems like Yi Yim gets recognized by the Prime Minister's mother earlier in the episode before this happens. When he comes back to get the umbrella he left, she feels like she recognizes him and then realizes later on, oh, it's the uncle that's supposed to be dead. I don't know if this is on purpose. I feel like he knew that she would eventually recognize him. I mean, she's a citizen of Korea. Everybody knows that Uncle Yi Yim killed the king. So I feel like this was planned. And also the newspapers that have been going to the Prime Minister are being sent from her family home. And her mother knows nothing about these newspapers. Suspicious, for sure. Meanwhile, back in the Korea universe, the king meets up with Nari to give her a solid gold turtle to rent out one of the spaces she owns, and meets the detective at the coffee shop. This is also when the king finds out what the detective has discovered so far about his uncle's doppelganger and the king's doppelganger who died at a young age. The king also asks about the other family members, and this is when he finds out that the mother of his doppelganger is still alive, which he seems very interested in, which I would too. The detective invites him to join her when she goes to the address on file where she supposedly lives, but this doesn't happen in this episode, so we've got to wait for this encounter, I think, until episode 9. I'm hoping episode 9. Back in Korea, the Prime Minister has finally decided to look through the newspapers that somebody keeps sending her, because this is the second one, and well, you gotta follow fate, you know? Fate's telling you, you get two things, you should look at it. As she's flipping through the pages, she actually ends up finding a photo of herself or her doppelganger at a baseball game. And obviously she freaks out about this because she saw that same reflection of this person in her computer screen just last episode. We still don't know fully who's sending these newspapers. My guess is Yem, but someone is obviously trying to hint to her about this world that exists. And maybe they're hoping that she'll then connect that that's where the king is disappearing or that's where the detective is from, especially after meeting Luna, who is the detective's doppelganger in the Korea universe. I'm just speculating here, but someone is definitely trying really hard to secretly let the Prime Minister know what's going on. Overall, this was an absolutely great episode, especially the discovery that Kang is from Korea and he apparently replaced his doppelganger self at a very young age, and we don't know why. Like, obviously it's all these adults that are coming in and taking the places of people in Korea and people in Korea, but we haven't really seen a kid, besides maybe the yo-yo kid. The yo-yo kid is making me suspicious, but anyway, this is a grown adult who was replacing his doppelganger as a child. That's what's very interesting right there. And the fact that it seems like he may not fully remember it happening or why. I feel like both his moms know. It's all very interesting. The characters, their involvement, everything, the comedy, just everything about this episode was great. But I do have a few gripes. I did find a few things in this episode to be a little, I want to say pandering, but I don't think pandering is the right word for it. But they did something in this episode that they did in a previous episode or similar to it that I was like, why is that necessary? Something that I'm noticing a lot is, and it's taking me out of whatever is happening, is that the side characters really give a lot of information to the main characters that are needed to keep the plot going, but like really unexpected, and I don't really know where they're getting this information or how they came to that thought or idea. It just kind of pops up as if, oh, my mind immediately went there, and I just know this information immediately. They could have given it a little more pause. It's like just readily available. Like, let's let them work a little bit. It'll be okay if the Prime Minister or Yi Yim don't get the information as quickly as possible. But like, you know, when the bookstore manager, owner, whatever you want to call him, looks at the ID badge and immediately is like, oh yeah, that's Luna. Everybody knows Luna. Well, Young didn't know about Luna. The king, who's been searching for the detective for 25 years, never knew about Luna. So yeah, I understand that this bookstore owner is obviously a minion of Yi Yim and probably has been dealing with a lot of seedy characters. But still, it's like, it just feels, I don't like it. Also, I feel like this episode had way more product placements than the previous episodes. I don't know if it was on purpose or I just was really noticing it extra in this episode, but it just felt like they were everywhere. Oh, another thing that kind of upset me about this episode, and it's not a big thing, I just was a little sad about it, was, yes, we were introduced to Luna, but I felt like I could have used more scenes of Luna. Maybe they're gonna really bring her character into episode 9, and so they're kind of saving that. But like, we see her at the beginning of the episode and then nothing for the rest of the episode. No hint, no what is she up to, nothing. And I was kind of upset about that. I mean, I felt like the trailer really pushed that Luna is gonna be in this episode, and I just felt like there weren't enough scenes with her in them. But maybe they're gonna make up for that in episode 9. In fact, they probably will be, so my gripes are probably null and void. But those were my overall thoughts of episode 8, The King Eternal Monarch. My throat is season up. I feel like that's the sign that I should end this video. I hope you enjoyed watching this. I hope you enjoyed hearing my thoughts and recap on the episode, and I will see you next time. Bye. I don't know about any of y'all, but it is beautiful in spring where I'm at, and my allergies are freaking killing me. And like the phlegm has gone to my lungs. No, I am not struggling breathing because I have COVID. I'm just very congested, and it's very hard for me not to clear my throat out every 5 freaking seconds. I'm gonna try my best not to do it during the video, but no promises.